far and wide as possible. One of the things we're doing that might be of interest to some folks in this group is we've got a partnership with JD Ops Center coming here hopefully by the end of Q1, if not sooner. But basically what we're going to be working on there is the ability to automatically pull the hours, pull the locations, and pull the fault codes into Gripp so that we can do alerts and reminders. And if there's, John Deere has the yellow warnings and the red errors that come out of the fault code issues. So those kind of match up pretty well to what we're doing on the Gripp side. But the point would be to make it easier for folks, especially the row croppers who are doing a lot of the, running green with the top hats and the telematics, and make it easier to pull that stuff in to allow you to manage that equipment in one place. So you've got all your services in Gripp, you've got the non-green, all the fixed equipment, general farm to-dos, that type of thing. So I'd love to share, or answer any questions or see who might find that interesting that's on this call. The other things that we've done since our last call is we've got some pretty good uptake in just the translation part of what we do. So I don't know how many folks on this call are, hiring folks that speak Spanish, but we do automatic Spanish to English translations now in the activity that we log. So, somebody on your team who, may not speak English can log an issue, or can, maybe it's a squeaky bearing, leaky seal. You'd be able to read it in English, respond in English, they would see it in Spanish. So we do that back and forth. The next language up there is probably the South African dialect, Afrikaans, I think they call it. We see a lot of South African folks as well. And then later on will be, some sort of Eastern dialect, Eastern European language. But for the most part, Spanish and the South African folks are what we see the most. But we're looking for feedback on that as well. And then I guess the other part that we've had pretty good uptake in is just and this may be more for places where there's regulatory or audit, challenges that people are doing to log those or write those down. But we've been able to attach sort of lightweight paper form kind of surveys to the piece of equipment as well. So, an example of that might not be as relevant for this group, but, Washington Fruit and some of the apple packers do OSHA inspections on their forklifts. It used to be a paper form, nobody filled it out. They were also Spanish speakers. They wouldn't write it down. Nobody carries a pencil in their pocket. So now they scanned the QR code and, can fill that out with a couple of taps. And then if they're seeing issues on whatever piece of equipment they're inspecting, it creates this to-do item that you don't forget about. So those are probably the biggest areas that we've released so far and are continuing to work on. But so far, I mean, it's been, pretty incredible for us that we've, even with our month-to-month pricing, we still have had 0 people leave the platform, and we've got growing usage. So we know we're hitting the emotional note. It's just the nuances between, row croppers in the Midwest and rice and cotton in the Mid-South, and then, specialty and kind of the other parts of the country, onions and apples and cherries and wine grapes and things like that. So, I guess I'll stop there and see if anybody has any questions. I think the other than, helping me figure out how to support you guys better, I know some of you folks have the Gripp Light plan. We gave, we mailed out 10 tags. If you're doing any winterization or, you're probably getting ready for spring now, like happy to restart some of those programs and get you back in and take you through the latest and greatest of what we've got. So, you can maybe take another go at it or give more feedback there. But other than that, it's just, spreading the good word of what we're doing to neighbors and friends and whoever, is willing to listen. So, we're feeling pretty good about the future for us, and want to just make sure we take care of this group and use you guys as the canaries in the coal mine in the sense of feedback and things like that, features. So why don't I stop there and see if anybody has any questions or comments or anything like that.
Go ahead, Paul.
I just wanted to be updated on, I know you and Ray Tyler have been working on the process of organic certification documentation. So, are y'all any further down the road? Because that, what I understood you and Ray talking about, it would really help when you got
Yeah.
inspections.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to spend a couple of days on site with Ray. It's been he's he's definitely got the need. He hasn't solved his problem yet. I know the last time he talked to his organic auditor, they're basically like, what you're doing last year, like it's not going to get you certified. So you got to come up with something. But I think there's still, he's incredibly busy. He's got the farm markets, twice a week, and he's trying to harvest across 2 locations. And that one location we are on, Paul, has, they're turning crops over every, 3 to 4 weeks, 50 crops. So I think I'm going to have to go on site because we're basically ready to do what he needs. It's just him finding the time to actually get it in place. We've kind of worked out what the report would look like for his auditor. He has not yet introduced me to his auditor, so I could, just kind of check off with them. But that would be the next step there, and maybe coming out of February as we go down to Memphis, there may be some time I can, slide into over to him and, stop by and see what he's doing. That would probably be the best fit there. But yeah, it's been one of those kind of fits and starts opportunities, but to my knowledge, he hasn't solved it yet.
Gotcha. Hey, thanks, man. That's great information, though.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, does he always have the same auditor? I don't know how that works with organic certification. Or can we talk to basically any auditor and get the information that we need?
He would probably have the same auditing company, but I think they rotate auditors just so you don't create, they rotate auditors so you don't create that relationship with an auditor, and it gives them a little, keeps things cleaner, I guess. I know when every year on our organic certification, we have a different auditor.
Yeah, we are going to work with. Oh, go ahead, Thomas.
No, go ahead.
As I say, we are going to work with Lauren Lucht up in Oregon. She doesn't do organic certification, but I actually was at a show in Washington State and met her certifier for, I'm not quite sure. It's not organic, but it's some other food safety or something. And I was surprised, even in that case, there's very little organization. There's no guidance by these auditors. They basically say, here's a checklist of stuff. We're going to show up on site and sit around the table and look through your papers. And so she's interested in helping solve that for the stuff that she gets audited on, which is not organic, but it's in that realm of, it's just a complete mess, it seems like, in that space. And maybe that's like in the kind of the greenhouse hoop house area, versus like a traditional, row crop. But there's a lot of opportunity there.
Was it GAP, Tracy? GAP certification?
No, it was, I think I've got the card here. It wasn't GAP because Jenkins doing the GAP stuff down in North Carolina the last few weeks. This is Eagle Group, Food Technician Eagle Certification Group is what it's called. So it's like some sort of food safety certification.
Got it.
You ever dived into any like CGMP stuff yet, Tracy?
Have not. No, I'm not even familiar with that acronym.
Current good manufacturing practices, which is just another record keeping and stuff that's more on the industrial manufacturing side, but gets pulled into a lot of food safety stuff or Safe Food, Safe Feed Acts.
Got it.
I guess the question I got for you, Tracy, is just if you could update, I guess, where in the queue, probably my biggest hurdle that I have personally yet is offline, off-cell functionality, to record and update stuff when I'm, in the machine shed and can't get a cell service.
Yeah, so that's come up quite a bit recently. That's something that we're looking to solve here Q1. Might escape into early April, but it's definitely on the list. One of the things we're working on that's really accelerating that is a partnership with a company called PickTrace. So PickTrace does they do time management for 70 or 80% of the tree fruit industry, and they're looking for a way to manage equipment with their customers and then use the hours on the machine to capture how much time. The long story short is a lot of the times their app isn't in a cell area, and so in order to get access to that market for us, they would need us to do offline. So it's definitely something we're planning. We would probably do that in a couple of phases. There's there's the logging of the filling out of these. Let's say you're doing a preventative service in the shop, Joe. You'd have access to fill out some of those more structured, we call those routines. Those would be the first thing that we enable offline, and then it would be just general issue reporting, or I want to log a squeaky bearing, or a report, or an issue out in the field. So I think those are the two main ways that we would enable that.
Okay, and with that, then the just initial setup, would that be something you're looking at from that functionality too as a separate one, or would that be tied in with one of the two you mentioned?
Yeah, that would probably come in the second part of that, the second phase there. So yeah, that would allow you to tag a machine in a machine shop, onboard it essentially, and then really push the setup of that piece of equipment to the cloud essentially when you have signal. So that would probably be with the second part of that, the second phase of that.
Okay, no, that's great. Look forward to it.
Yep.
Blake, you have any comments, your experience thus far? You want to unmute?
Yep, here we are. Starting to talk and I was muted. Yeah, the one thing that kind of is bothersome for me, not that it's a huge deal, but I have to, just when I do my PM service and everything, and I have a couple of our guys on there with us, and they're not as handy with the app. Be nice if when I type something in, so like when you hit that your asset or whatever,
Yep.
it'll just say PM service instead of what you did. And I know you click on it, but the writing's so small they can't see it because they're older gentlemen.
Got it. So
It'd be
want
nice if I could just switch it. So like whenever I do that PM, like that's what I've been doing for them. I just edit the title and write what I did and the hours and the date to put, like, it's not a big deal to rewrite that, but it's just, a small thing. Other than that, we've been really, really loving the app. It's really useful for us.
Got it. Okay. Well, I'll take a spin through your account right after the call then and take a look at that, because yeah, I think we should be able to make you kind of pipe that title in there so you don't have to redo it.
Yeah, it's not a big deal or anything. It's just one of those deals where it's always when someone wants to look something up, they can't read it.
Yeah. And
So,
a little bit of friction, goes a long way towards non-usage, as we know. So
yeah, because they got a couple of them that just were like, yep, so I've been having to type in their stuff, but it's not that big a deal.
Yep.
But other than that, the app's been pretty seamless, works good. We're gonna do the inventory side of it here, I'm hoping.
Okay.
Once we get some tags and whatever and try and get that side going, and then I'll probably have more info for you.
Got it. Okay.
One thing I had was on the telematics side. You mentioned JD Ops and that. How hard will it be to get to Case IH or some of the others?
It shouldn't be hard. The work with John Deere will kind of pave the way for mapping like location, hours, fault codes into where we store those in Gripp. So then it's just a matter of hooking those up. So Case would be the obvious next one. If anybody on the call has like what would be the third, fourth, fifth, like Kubota does some of this, AGCO, then you get into some of the GPS devices like Samsara. So we're always looking for kind of what that list of integrations would look like, just to make this easier and easier. Maybe Chevy, Ford, I don't know. But they all have kind of similar capabilities.
I would say cat.
Cat, that's a good one. Yeah.
We really want to look towards the construction side.
Yeah.
That'd be a very parallel to the ag market.
Yep.
Because there is a company that ties in with JD Ops too. Plug in or something, I believe. You might want to be looking at that.
Yeah, there's one called Leaf, and they do kind of an agnostic layer that integrates with a bunch of different. The problem with Leaf is their pricing model is basically by acre, and they don't have something that works with our. It's like we'd have to pay thousands of dollars a year to hook up an account that's going to pay us, $200 a year, and they've been pretty stubborn in changing their business model. So we're just going to go direct. Well, I was able to put together a prototype with John Deere Ops Center in like a weekend, just, and I don't program much anymore, but it was easy enough for me to figure out. So I think we're just going to go direct ourselves.
Yeah, because I see where guys are getting that and they put it on the semis and everything, and then you can walk right on JD Ops, just like if it's a newer piece of equipment. So like your
Yep.
semis are at all times, and I would
Yep.
assume if you're doing that, it should give you mileage and hours and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Danner's a good example of that because he's got his semis, he's got his CAD equipment in there. They're all using the JD Top Hat. He's paid for that, but there's aftermarket parts like that tie in as well, or aftermarket service providers that do the same type of thing, almost like it was the old, like a farm. I think a Farm Logs used to do that, or one of those kind of plug into the CAN port type of thing.
I know one of the things you wanted to touch base on is livestock, and Nate is on here. We had another young guy on here. I see he dropped off, but you want to touch on that? So when I send out the recording, the guys can at least hear what you're looking for. And
Yeah, I mean, I'm just interested in understanding. I was on with a rancher yesterday and realized like there's multiple avenues of livestock, beef raising or pork raising, depending on if you're ranching, if you're in CAFO, if you're doing something else with a dairy situation there. But when I talked to the rancher a couple of days ago, she basically said, was right in line with what we saw. Lots of Spanish labor coming in. They provide the H2A housing, so they have regular inspections depending on the state. You may inspect twice a year. If you're up Pacific Northwest, you're doing it once a month. And then very similarly on the equipment side, there isn't really any meaningful way that they're tracking equipment across what they're doing. She did say historically a lot of the ranching community has been, I don't know, like resistant to technology, or maybe they won't even want to pay a couple $100 a year for something to track and prevent one outage of a piece of equipment that's going to cost them thousands of dollars a part. So I don't know if that's a mentality or there's opportunities. The pregnancy checks, the things like that happen regularly. I don't know if there's a way that folks are using software for those or what. I'm just looking to learn a little bit more from anybody who's kind of in the space.
Thomas, are you in a spot where you can talk? I know when we talked about it the other day, he mentioned his semen tank and stuff like that.
I am in a terrible service area. If you'll give me about 5 minutes, I can talk.
All righty. Nate, you want to kind of give some thoughts and responses to what we just said there? Or you're a livestock guy, so I hate to pick on you.
No, you're good. I just shipped the kids out on the bus, so I can talk now. Yeah, as far as semen tank, and I don't know how far you want to go, but a guy could get tied into these hog barns and get your alarms and your feed weights, and there's different operating systems that do that, but if a guy could just have one that would work with all of them, The semen tanks are a big thing for inventory wise, and you touched on the mentality of not using software. I can, yeah, that's a mentality. That's not a, people don't want it, or it's not that they can't use it. It's, they
Right.
won't.
Yeah. Do you feel like they've gotten burned in the past trying it, or it's just an overall resistance to technology? Or both?
Overall, you know, the younger the generations get that do it, I think everybody's more receptive to it, but you're not going to get a 65-year-old farmer that's been doing everything on paper his whole life to switch over and trust a phone. I mean,
Yep.
and most of the time, that's how their kids were raised, and they're going to do it on paper anyway because that's what dad wants, or that's what dad expects, or you know what I mean?
Yep, totally.
They
Yeah, we
might
see
do
that.
both. It is possible that they go to both, or, you know, when somebody retires, they'd switch over, but that'd be your major issue with it, I would see.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking possible use cases. Would you put like a QR code on each pen, or how would you do that? Be a little much to put, you know, an ear tag with a QR code on it, so you had every animal.
Yeah, I
Excuse
mean,
me.
the way we talked about it with the rancher, because she's doing pregnancy checks like a couple times a week, is all she needs to do is log the ear tag number. There's a number on the ear to put that, and then are they pregnant or not? If they're pregnant, like other notes that she might speak into her phone, you know, might be things she's noticed or something with the coat or whatever. And then she would go back into her office and export that information on the ones that are pregnant. You know, so right now it's literally a sheet of paper. You know, she's got to go back to the office. She collects these during the week, and then at the end of the week tries to, and it's just kind of a mess there. So we could use whatever identification number, ear tag number, whatever that's already there. So you wouldn't have to. We wouldn't actually have to use a QR code. You just go into the app. It's one of the general things that you have available without scanning. Go in, do your pregnancy check, and then log the ID at that point.
So you could do
What
all
I'd be curious in is if you could pull in RFID tag numbers, if you could make it integrate with an RFID scanner.
You beat me to it, Thomas.
Yeah. So
I mean,
how does that work now? They're taking a handheld scanner out into the field, proximity to the ear tag, and now you know the calf or the cow type of thing.
Yep.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah. I mean, there's no reason we couldn't. What are some of the manufacturers or brands that are doing that type of approach?
Allflex, Ytex. I mean, there's a ton of them that are doing that are creating
Does Richie
RFID
do it yet?
tags. I don't know. I'm not sure. But here's the situation we're in. So within the next probably 3 years, every animal that's born in the US is going to have an RFID tag. It's not, there's no legislation, but you may disagree with me. If you do, speak up, but it's moving pretty heavy. The fact that everything's going to have an RFID tag. And we are using RFID tags this year for the first time on everything with a DNA tag. So I can take DNA right as I'm working these calves or lambs, and it would be able to correlate all that back in one place.
So are you using RFID with non-animals as well then? Is that what you said? It was breaking up a little bit.
Oh, no, hang on. I'm another call. Give me just a second. I'll be.
I'm just looking up right now. Is there an RFID scanner for a cell phone?
Yes, there is a Bluetooth RFID scanner. And so we're using RFID on every animal that's being born on our place this year. And along with that, we're collecting DNA samples on every animal that's being born on our place. So I will have a DNA sample that's tied to an RFID tag that I can store or I can ship off for sequencing at any point. And so just from a maintenance standpoint of keeping up with that, who's been sent, who's where, all that fun stuff. There's not the management system I currently use doesn't have a good way to do that. It doesn't have a good way to tell me where my samples are.
And what is the name of that system?
We use Herd Boss.
Got it. Okay.
Because if you tie it into your cell phone, it would automatically record GPS in that, I would think, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it
You
should.
know what that animal is not when you're scanning it. And on the flip side, then if that worked, could you do the same thing with the QR codes on like equipment?
Yeah. Yeah, we get that quite a bit. I mean, not RFID, but like an AirTag type of approach, a very low cost beacon, if you will. Some of that's loss prevention. Some of that's just a little bit more information on locations because they move quite a bit. So, there's a lot of options there.
So you
Nate,
have
are
looked
you
at
guys using
AirTag.
Nate, are you guys using RFID tags now?
Well, they switched all the bangs tags are RFID,
Right.
and I didn't realize how much they were pushing it. Like if we sell a show calf now, 90% of the truckers won't take them unless they have one.
Right.
And especially if you're crossing state lines. But we ran into that. I didn't know anything about it till this fall. We had to send a steer out to Pennsylvania, and the guy was like 3 hours away, and he said, well, he asked what the RFID tag was and if we could get a picture of it. And it was a Sunday. We ended up calling like 3 vets to get somebody there in time, and but yeah, I fully agree with you. Everything will be RFID tagged in the near future, I believe. Especially, I think, on the dairy side even more.
Well, and see, the sheep and goats have had to have a scrapey tag for movement off site for years. And so they've been required to have that scrapey tag, but it's never been RFID. And the buzz we're hearing now, there's some talk. ASI is meeting next week in Arizona, and on the ballot there is how we're going to handle moving to RFID in sheep and goats, because that tag is pretty big. When you put it into a lamb's ear, that's a lot of weight on a lamb.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised they haven't figured out how to make them quite a bit smaller. I mean,
Yeah,
on
me
cattle,
too.
it's not such a big deal, but like you said, the sheep and the goats, and I could even see, well, all the show pigs and stuff have one as well.
Do you know if those are active or passive tags? Like, do they have a battery in them? Is that generating the weight, or is it a passive one that needs a signal to bounce off to activate it from a phone or something or device?
It's passive.
Okay.
Yeah, if a guy could get hooked up with all flex, and like I said, I'm just kind of getting into this stuff, but I know there's different systems where you have readers on your pasture and what bulls are in what pasture, and if they go past a gate, however you want to say that, and it could keep, if a guy could keep it all straight, it would help with preg checking too.
Yeah.
Well, and it depends on if you're talking about ultra high frequency or the ultra low frequency on the reader, because some of those readers you have to be within like 8 to 12 inches of the calf for it to read, while some of them you can be 20 foot from them and it'll read. And so a lot of these feed yards are going to these ultra high frequency ones where they've got a receiver that's at the end of the feed bunk. And as those calves get up to that feed bunk, it's registering that they've been there to eat. And so they're trying to cut down on labor with those, with pen riders, so they can know if a calf hasn't been up to eat in 24 hours or whatever. But the other thing, Nate, this is something that I had talked to Tracey about. We keep a couple of semen tanks, one for sheep stuff and one for cattle stuff. That way I'm not mixing my semen or embryos up. And it would just be handy for me if we had a simple way of scanning the top of that tank when I'm pulling straws for breeding, or when we're, putting in embryos or whatever we're doing, just be able to scan that and log that, because I currently keep an inventory in Herd Boss, and I also keep an inventory in my Cattle Visions app. And so we've got redundancy, but they don't always match. And it's hard to know which one's right because I don't know which one I updated last.
And do you need both of those, or is that like would we be introducing a third mechanism, or would you be, if you had one system that was always accurate, would that be enough?
That would be enough.
Okay.
So we didn't. Herd Boss, when it first released, did not have a semen tank inventory, and so that's why we used the Cattle Visions app. That's who most of the time that's who we were ordering semen from, and so we used the Cattle Visions app because it's what we had. And then when Herd Boss came around and I could use everything in one place, I started using that. And if I pull the semen, I typically put it into Herd Boss. But if my wife is there and she's pulling semen for me, I don't know which app she's necessarily using, if she's using Herd Boss or if she's using, something else. And so that's where it gets a little sticky for us.
Well, you're more on the ball than I am. We've got 3 tanks, and normally at the end of our breeding cycle, we go back through and yeah, nobody marked this cane. We used 10 straws and nobody marked 1 use down. So you're ahead of me.
Well, I'm not going to say it gets done every time. It depends on how quickly we're having to move cattle through. And that's the other thing, is that I've got one big tank. I bought a commercial tank so that I could replace one that was going bad. And my one big tank, I've got, I don't know. I probably got 7,000 or 8,000 units of semen in it. And between bulls that we've bought in the past and bulls that we've owned and had collected or whatever. And so I'm certain that there's no way the inventory's right on that tank. I mean, there's no way we're even close to what's actually in there.
No, I hear you. We do it on paper, but we actually had a year where the semen card got lost. So I was Google searching, and I'm sure we'd always have a paper one, but to have it on Gripp or, like you said, Herd Boss or Cattle Visions, just a backup would be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Well, let me go ahead.
Then the other thing we talked about with Tracey is the guys who are shipping semen. So we have started shipping semen, and so I've got 10 shipping tanks, and then I've got a couple of fresh chilled tanks that I can send out too. And with both of those, I don't always remember where they're at. That doesn't sound good, but that's just part of the problem, is that I know I've sent them to somebody, but which tank went to which person, and I need to be able to track and make sure they get delivered on time and didn't have any issues with all that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very similar problem that we're trying to solve with one of the co-ops in Indiana around seed bin totes and chemical totes. They say the same thing. They're sending hundreds of these things out. They don't remember where they put them. I mean, they're $600-800 a piece, and it's something. It's seemingly relatively easy, but it just doesn't get done. And so they want to be able, when it gets delivered, whoever takes receipt of it, note that where it was, when it was taken receipt of. There's a little finger signature thing that we do. So I mean, we could solve that pretty easily with, a couple of tags. I'd be happy to send you some and just have you try it out. I mean, that'd be relatively simple.
Nate, do you think there would be value in that when you're getting semen shipments in?
Yeah. I'm thinking more along the lines like you're saying, shipping out, and like Cattle Visions or Lautner, Rogers, any of them guys that have hundreds of shippers going all over the country. If they could track them, that'd be huge. And it sounds like it shouldn't be too hard, I guess, unless I'm
No,
hearing you wrong,
no, I
Tracy.
mean, that could be solved, immediately. That's pretty easy for us. I think those are the if I'll look up Lautner and Rogers. I'm not too familiar with them, but that would be, those would be opportunities to get in with those types of, they're not wholesalers, but that, get into the infrastructure, the apparatus of the system in general. Instead of doing one-off types of solutions there, that would be, would be an opportunity there.
And on the sheep side, Reproduction Specialty Group would be your big contact there, and I can make an introduction to Dr. Tad Thompson. He's the man that runs that.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, we don't buy a lot of show steer semen, and that's why we're not using the same folks that. Thank you. That's why we're not using the same folks that that Nate's using a lot. But it just depends on who your folks are, who your breeders are, what they're raising, as to what semen company they're mainly going to. Your commercial guys are going to Gen X and Select Sires. Dairy guys are largely going to Select Sires. More than any of the others.
I
And
know
so it just depends on
ABS
what
is
they're
big
raising.
around here too. Oh, sorry.
No, you're good.
ABS is big around here too for the dairies.
Yeah,
Okay.
I forget about ABS because ABS pretty well lost their presence in Tennessee. 20 years ago. My dad was a tech for ABS for a number of years, and then they just kind of lost their presence in Tennessee, and I just forget about them. They're coming back down here.
Yeah,
Tracy,
go ahead, guys. Sorry.
Go ahead, Joe.
you had mentioned, I thought, having voice memos. I thought you said like workers were doing that. Do you look towards maybe that AI function of translating the voice memos then back into a text record? Something down the road?
Yeah. What we've done so far is we're just taking advantage of the diction offering on the phone. So most like late Androids and iOS phones, there's a little microphone button on any text input. And so that's what most people use today. When we get to being able to record, let's say we get the functionality of like a TikTok or Instagram where you could record a video or just an audio file, we would be able to pretty easily translate that into, transcribe it to text and then translate the text. That wouldn't be difficult at all. We're getting a lot of requests for, hey, let me walk around my piece of equipment, record a little video on where the 5 research points are and how to do a maintenance inspection so that when I hire somebody new, because I have 20-30% turnover every year, I don't have to do it in person. They can, the first 2 days are watching a series of videos across the equipment they're going to use to understand, what to do on it, how to start it. If it starts hard, get the can of ether out or whatever it is. So we're getting, so video and audio are definitely things that we're thinking about in the near future.
It sounds like air tags are also in the works for potential for grabbing or updating machine locations or equipment.
Yeah. Right now it's GPS on the phone, but it'd be a very similar, with those types of devices, we'd be able to, log that in a passive way. You walk by it and it would be able to capture that, but then just more frequently.
off the cuff here a little bit. Joe, would it, we use those cards to scan into the ethanol plant out of all of our trucks. You get a guy in there, it's got the wrong one. Would this ever work for you guys, or is it just simpler the way you do it now?
Now, for the card system we're using, if you're not matched, if that particular card is not matched up, it will not read. Or it'll read and it'll be a blank and it won't have a name on it. We've actually got it where we can use the same card for guys that are coming to our facility in Glenville. We can set that up and use the same card at both places. But between systems, our system doesn't read cards from another competitor. So if it's on a CompuWay versus an Agris or whatever, two different card systems, their frequencies are different. They don't necessarily overlap and read falsely. I do know it is an issue at other facilities with a different card system where they have scales side by side. And at times those will read, it'll capture it and the truck's on the wrong scale. So both heads, the inbound and outbound, will read the same card. I've heard of that occurring. Ours are such that they have to be within basically 2 inches of the scanner in order to read the card. So that eliminates the cross-contamination, I guess, of the data.
Yeah, I guess that's what I was asking, is if it, say all of the companies got together and said, we want one card for one person, would they be able to talk it through and you'd actually get a Gripp card instead of a Compu or a whatever system you guys do? I'm not very technology advanced. Yep. I just know it's a pain when somebody gets in the truck and then tries to scan a Poet card at Manly, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I know for us, we decided just do one card, one truck, and then we change who it reads to as needed, because we saw that as being a major issue for the custom haulers, where they have a Rolodex of cards for 20 different guys for locations, and that's just going to be a nightmare. So, I mean, the only thing we can do is for ours is just, one card, one person, but it seems like right now there's 2 or 3 major players in that space for RFID cards and readers.
That kind of brings me back to the on-farm. I thought an ideal, if you could figure out how to put an air tag on the Gripp tag, could you bypass what we were talking about earlier, the Casey hauling, the AGCO? We'd just go right to yours and I could see right where my semis are and all the tractors, even though I got outdated. I don't have even the JD ups on all my tractors. So if I could just look at Gripp.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of, there's 2 different solutions there. One is just a GPS puck, so that's like an air tag, and then there's something that would tie into the CAN bus where you get hours, maybe fault codes, and whatever else the CAN bus would allow you to access. There's low cost hardware options for those. We're probably a little bit away from that solution just because it would, we start to, and maybe there's hardware solutions we could integrate with or resell or something to that effect. But I think there's a need for that. It's not part of our, core right now.
Yeah, that'd be like a one-time, you'd buy the hardware.
Right.
Yep.
Yep. Exactly.
Like I said, I could get excited about that because I don't want to get the newer, latest, greatest stuff. I'm kind of happy with my 8400. Yep. And I know they have at it, the same as with the semis, but third-party solution might not be a bad option.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I know Bushel bought Farm Logs, I think, which used to do that, but their business model was a little weird, and that was perhaps a little too early, being 5, 6, 7 years ago. expensive too, I think.
Alrighty, any final thoughts, questions for Tracey, or likewise, Tracey, any questions for us?
No, I think I've got a bunch of things here written down. I'm going to do a little bit of kind of legwork on this, and then I'll circle back with a few of the folks, directly, Thomas and Nate on some of the stuff, and Joe, and we'll go from there. We are a week from Sunday. We're pitching for the top spot at the Farm Bureau Egg Innovation Challenge. There's 4 finalists, for $100,000, and the $100,000 would be great, but winning the top spot would be, that the mileage of the awareness there would be great for us. So, root for us from remote or afar or whatever, and we're gonna give it our best. We're excited about it.
Online voting on that?
I don't know. They do have a crowd, like a fan favorite award, I think. So I don't know if they're live streaming that, but I'll see if I can find out and send it over to you.
Send us a link for that if we can help out. That's pretty easy lift. So
yeah.
You plan to be down in Des Moines?
For the egg show?
Our farm show?
Yeah, yep. I'll be there that week, yep. And then I got to fly to India on Thursday night that week. So I'll be there Monday through Thursday.
You'll be at the Ag booth?
Yep.
Okay. Not anywhere, but I got to be at the doctor the Tuesday of that, and I think I'm coming Wednesday, but I'm not sure yet. So.
Okay.
What about Farm Journal top producer? Will you be there? Or?
Not gonna make that one, I don't think. I mean, there's a small chance I would, but I think I'm gonna be down in Indiana for that week.
Then you are planning on being in Memphis for the.
Yep, Memphis, and then Commodity Classic that weekend.
Okay. Alrighty. Well, I'll miss you in the Memphis week because again, I was planning on being down there for the Ag Launch deal, but I guess I got to have surgery that day, so.
You got to get that taken care of.
Yeah, I would much rather be there, but when they get, talk to them a couple days beforehand, and they're like, yeah, March 1st at the earliest, and then 2 days later, I'm like, how about February 27th?
Great.
That, or I was getting bumped to June, so.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Enjoyed.
Hey, just a quick question. Tracey, have you got just a minute that you can stay on with Lauren and I after everybody else jumps off?
Yeah, I do have a call here in 2 minutes, but if we can get it done in 2 minutes, or we can follow up later,
I'll
happy to do it.
Just call me.
Thanks, guys.
Just call me after you get done with your call.
Okay.
Okay.
We're down to if Nate drops off, we're here. So.
All right. See ya. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.
See ya.
Then I'm going to stop recording.